Welcome back to Mississippi Road. I'm your host, Jack Stevens. In the next 30 minutes, we will go eat steak at Doe's Eat Place in Greenville, then head to Ecru for M.B. Mayfield Day. Here in Fort Gibson, along this aptly named Church Street, are 7 houses of worship, with perhaps the most photographed church of all, First Presbyterian. This house of worship was erected in 1859 and 60, just before the war between the states broke out. The cathedral-like sanctuary features stained glass windows installed in 1903, and the once oil-burning chandeliers of solid brass came from the old steamboat, the Robert E. Lee. Pastor of the congregation for 27 years, Reverend David Daniels.
We like to think that this perhaps was one of the reasons that Grant would make his famous statement that the town was too beautiful to burn.
For 8 months, Fort Gibson was without its most familiar landmark. On October 31st, 1989, First Presbyterian's hand pointing to heaven was lowered to earth. Chairman of the Board of Deacons, Gary Knight.
Really the first inkling that we had that something like this was going to occur was when we started to repair gutters. We started out just to repair a gutter, and we found out that when we had the gutter repaired, that really was not where the water was really coming from. So we started to look around for where the water was coming from, and we decided through the help of some engineers from Mississippi and from Louisiana and some other areas about the walls retaining water, and it had to be waterproofed. So we started to do the things about the waterproofing. And then we found out, of course, that we couldn't waterproof the steeple because of the coatings. People said this steeple wouldn't work because problems within the steeple. So when we looked at the steeple, we said, yeah, we've got to have something done. So you've got to do something there. And just one thing led to another until it turned into a whole lot more than I ever anticipated that it would.
When we took it down, repairs, how many different people of all races have asked me about it, and of all the different faiths represented in town. It seems that it's become a landmark, and I hope a love mark, so to speak, for all the people.
We felt like that one of the real important things once we got the hand down was to put it in a place, since we weren't going to be working on it right away, put it in a place where people could see it and enjoy it. You know, get to feel it and touch it and put their hands on it. And that hand just, it holds a special place in so many people's hearts and minds, you know. Anyway, the hand was down and the project began. Basically, when we took the hand off and got it on the ground, we found that it rusted in a lot of areas. There were some holes in it. The hand was in bad shape as far as weather, oxidation, that sort of thing. We had to repair the holes, the places it had rusted through. That was done over in Mound, Louisiana. And then we sent it to Jackson, where it was thoroughly cleaned, chemically cleaned in a vat. They placed it in there. It removed all the gold, all the old primer, and exposed bare metal. When that was done, that company applied a sulfate finish to it. On top of the galvanized part, the sulfate thing pretty much does the same thing that the galvanized thing used to, and it protects the metal from rust, oxidation, and that sort of thing, weathering agents.
While the hand was being repaired, renovations were begun on the church. Project coordinator Ken McLemore.
The project started out, of course, at the lower levels, reinforcing the bell tower. We had planned 28 days in the bell tower itself for actually shoring it up, and we came out of there in about 21 days. That in itself was enough to give the whole project a boost, and we rolled right on along. The clock room, we had to replace the entire floor. That involved jacking up this 1-ton clock and putting new decking underneath it and everything. That was a pretty good project right there. As we progressed on up, we reinforced things underneath us. We progressed on up and began to load the steeple, so to speak. And doing that, we had to build new beams around the existing beams in the steeple. Very tedious job.
And I'm like you, I think the good Lord's hand's been in it all the way. There's been so many different
Inspecting
things.
the beams in the 130-year-old steeple, Shreve Guthrie.
The way the steeple is constructed is it's interesting. It's almost like two teepees built inside with the framing going out from that structure. Well, we decided that the steeple didn't have to be completely torn down, that it could be restored. And on the outside, before we put the sheet metal, which is coated copper, lead-coated copper, we have the sheets of treated plywood, which keeps the original structure intact. It's made it much stronger.
Has to stand up for a certain amount of time, and if you do it too soon, we learned about this project, and we thought, oh, that would be great, because we love Mississippi and the historical aspects of this, and the idea that you can play a part in something that's so important religiously and socially, and it really means a great deal to us. But once we get it finished, it should last a long, long time.
Gilders Marcia Brown and Augusta Walden of Brookhaven.
Our group is called the Gold Magnolias. We have steel magnolias and we have gold magnolias. And we say that a gold magnolia is a steel magnolia that's been gold leafed. And this is really a hobby with all of us. We do a lot of antique frames, picture frames, a lot of antiques, sculptures, jewelry. We've gold leafed almost anything that can be gold leafed, except we've never gold leafed a hand before. And if one person had done it, it would have taken about 20 days. So with the four of us working, it's taken about 160 hours. It did take almost 2,000 squares of the 3 3/8 inch squares.
I guess the biggest problem we're going to have now is getting the hand from here over to the front of the church, which is about 50 yards. That's going to be the problem once we get it gilded and prepped.
The one underlying fact in all of this restoration is what we're doing is going to last for another 131 years. You know?
The hand signified a favorite gesture of the first minister that stayed here so long, spent his entire ministry, I think, here, Zebulon Butler. And one of his favorite pulpit gestures was to point heavenly.
My great-great-great-grandfather was Zebulon Butler. He was the original founder of this church, the preacher who was in charge here at the time this church was constructed. As I understand, the first service here was his funeral, so he never got to preach in this church.
So to honor him, and also looking for something unique to atop a spire, and it would remind people of God when they pass by.
And really, that's the purpose of the hand in itself. When it's sitting atop its perch there, pointing heavenward, if one passerby looks up there and gets inspired and goes to the Lord for that, the hand's done its job. So is the church. You know, it's super. It really is.
We just were so excited about it when we heard about it, because all of us have our own personal stories about the hand, and it just really meant a lot to us, since we are native Mississippians, to be able to do this project.
Well, I first remember seeing the hand many years ago on a sightseeing trip that the family would go on in Fort Gibson, and I didn't have any idea that one day I'd be involved with restoring it.
It's a period in history that I don't think I'll ever forget, because I've traveled out of this country, and people look at the church and pictures of it, and they're just in awe, and I am all the time. It's wonderful to walk in on Sunday mornings and say, yeah, this is where I go, and I'm really proud.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. None of it happier than Will. I love to have my feet on solid ground right now. It's beautiful. Great God.
Joe's Eat Place. It seems like a lot of people have heard of this Delta restaurant. Most folks in Greenville know how to get to it. The chances are few people would stop in just passing by. But when it comes to thick, juicy steaks and spicy hot tamales, looks can be deceiving.
To me, what makes this place unique is just, first of all, where it's located, and the building is old, and when you come in, you feel like you've been here. After 2 or 3 minutes, you feel like you've been here all your life.
Charles Signa and his brother Doe Jr. are part of a family restaurant business that spans 3 generations. Aunts, uncles, brothers, and sisters have all taken their turn at serving hearty meals. But does working that close to family have its drawbacks?
Not really. At times, you fuss a little bit and this, that, and other. Charles and I may fuss about something, we may fuss, say, at 8 o'clock in the morning. But by 10 o'clock that same morning, we're saying, what's going, it just kind of blows over, We never had any major problems like somebody leaving or this, that, and the other,
But the Signas never lose sight of the driving force in their lives. It's food. Good food, and lots of it. Their thick, juicy steaks and tangy hot tamales are known all over the country. With hundreds of steakhouses serving delicious meals every day, what is it about eating at Doe's that's so special?
Oh, I don't know. Say there's somebody on an airplane, and we've had this happen before. There'll be people, there'll be a friend of ours or somebody that has been in here, a customer, say, oh, I was on an airplane in Washington, D.C., and I met somebody from the Delta, and this, that, and the other, or I met somebody from Detroit, and they said, want to know where you're from, and they'll say, and my friend will say, well, I'm from around Greenville, Mississippi, something like that. And this guy, whether he be from Detroit or he be from Cleveland, Mississippi, or he'll be from whatever, Washington, D.C., and this guy may say, well, have you heard of Doe's, And to me, that means a lot, and that has happened a bunch of times. Everybody likes the hot tamales, but when people come to eat, like these, companies or families or whoever comes to eat, they like the big steaks, they like those big T-bones. That's kind of our specialty,
And when Doe's says big steaks, they mean big steaks.
Well, we usually cut our T-bones 1.25 inches and usually cut our sirloin 1.5 inches. And that makes a big steak, 1.5 inches T-bone with a large fillet, they'll run 3 pounds, which is enough for 2 people, even 3 people if they're just moderate eaters. And then the 1.5 inch sirloins are big enough for 4 people or 3 people, but we have had people just to order individual sirloins and to try to eat them by themselves, But we just like that on our own because, it's just better.
Hey, let's not forget about that other Delta specialty, hot tamales. This simple traditional favorite requires a complicated multi-step process, sometimes incorporating up to 15 people. On a good day, upwards of 200 dozen tamales can be produced. It begins with the grinding of the 2 main ingredients, meat and cornmeal. Each is placed in a cylinder and then compressed and blended into a roll. This tube rod-like roll is fed onto a conveyor belt for cutting and staking. The individual tamales are hand-wrapped and tied in a special parchment paper, chilled in a freezer, and then simmered in a secret sauce. These finished tamales are placed, a dozen at a time, in large cans for carry-out sale.
Hot tamales! Get your hot tamales!
Good food, good friends, and a warm family atmosphere. Will such an enviable tradition continue?
As far as we know, it will. We're hoping that it will. We've got, Charles got a son, and I've got a little boy, Joe the third, or Dominic the third, and, you know, you kind of discourage them not to come in this thing, because it is a lot of hard work and stuff like that, but, you know, you don't know what's going to happen. They may want to come in here or whatever, you know.
A lot of people, you know, I would even venture to say, other than the food being good, a lot of people come just for the atmosphere, just for the people, just for my brother Doe Jr. and I mean, really, because they expect us to be here cooking. Either myself or Doe Jr., one of us, we're here every night, and they expect us to be here.
You know, if you just stick with your basics, I think, and get that down good, I think people really like that. You know, to me, that's what it is. Because we don't do anything fancy here, real fancy.
Enthusiasts turn out for the annual viewing of the roses at the University of Southern Mississippi. Superintendent of Grounds, Ray Drawn, has the task of keeping up with them all.
We have about 750 approximately total rose bushes in the garden. We have approximately 40 different varieties within the main rose garden, which contains 32 different beds. The garden was planted in 1973. We've been extensive cultivating the garden since 1973. The grounds department, which I'm superintendent of, maintains the rose garden completely. And as far as time is concerned, we'll probably average 12 to 15 man-hours per week in maintaining the rose garden. Of course, in addition to the garden, we have about 400 other rose bushes within the landscape that we also maintain. Most of these roses in the main garden, which consists of about 750, was obtained through Jackson and Perkins Rose Nurseries, Armstrong Rose Nurseries, and some others, which are the large growers. Most of these roses were test roses to begin with, which they do not have a name. They only have a number. And after they're tested here in this garden and several other gardens in this southern area, they're put on the market the next year for sale. We locally have a Hattiesburg Area Rose Society, which was formed in 1972. And they were instrumental in organizing and promoting this public rose garden. And, of course, they are affiliated with the National Rose Society, which they have given us a lot of help in acquiring these new bushes from the rose growers over the years.
Ecru, Mississippi is home to artist M.B. Mayfield.
So I've always had this way of, even before I got older, of looking back, you know, reminiscing. But I've always got a kick out of thinking about the pleasantries of life. I thought I would like to paint from these memories, just bring them to life. I was about 6 years old when I started school, which is a long time ago. For some reason, when I would see certain objects, I couldn't seem to get my mind off of it until I just outlined it with my eyes. I wanted to take a pencil and some paper and draw those things just from memory. And then certain kids would see my paintings, rather see my drawing, and they would ask me to do a drawing for them. I eventually started coloring my drawings, after I painted them. In those days, during the Depression days, especially, even wet crayons were hard to come across. And then I had the idea that I could get used colors from some flower petals, like if I wanted blue color, I would use the morning glory. And then I would use zinnias for colors like pink, red, and I would even use grass, different types of grass for the green color. In other words, I wouldn't give up. I wouldn't accept the fact that I didn't have anything to work from. I would just improvise something, to keep it up. Sometimes I can wake up from a night's sleep, and all of a sudden a certain subject will just come up in my mind like a picture on a movie screen. One day there's a man came by. He came up to the house really to get a closer look. He had noticed some paintings that I had done, and they were hanging on the front porch, on the wall of the front porch. This was in 1949, in the summer of 1949. So he asked me how would I like to come down to Ole Miss in the coming fall to work for his art department as a custodian. He turned out to be Dr. Stuart Purses. He was the head of the art department at Ole Miss. I studied privately under him for about 2.5 years. Baby, don't cry. My mother took sick. She was a school teacher also, by the way. After she married, I think she quit teaching school because she started having babies. She didn't have time. She had a bunch of them, 12. Mama gonna buy you rocking horse, baby, don't. So when she took a stroke, I had to give up my job. I would come home and take care of her. Baby, don't cry. My mother died. I suppose unconsciously I was just wanting to keep my mother alive in some kind of way. I just had this deep urge to paint that portrait. Shortly after that, during the same year, I left home and went up north. I worked there until 1967. I came home sick to come back south. Plus the fact that I was away from, I guess, the old natural habitat, and I just couldn't be inspired to do memories of these scenes that we were doing. During segregation days, this side was the white people section, that side over there for the colored section on the far end. So you could tell the train is coming because the little boy's pointing, there comes the train, Mama. I suppose I got the biggest, the happiest shock of my life in the summer of 1988. I found out that the town of Icru, where I was born and raised, was preparing to celebrate M.B. Mayfield Day. Actually, it was the greatest day of my life, I suppose, because I had a showing of my painting there. Plus, I got a presentation, a letter of congratulations from the governor, and I got a key to the city, and the big banner across Main Street with my name on it in big letters. Celebrate M.B. Mayfield Day. It was like just a beautiful dream that really would never come true. I never would have dreamed it because, see, when I was a little boy, things are much different now than then. That's my stepfather, Papa Charlie. Fred. That's Whitey, by the way. We call them Whitey. The little companion dog. she was so smart. She took care of a little kitten. She just curled them up just like they were her own puppies. Whitey was some little dog. That painting there is a painting of a little cat that we had up the road, just a step out of the block. It was owned by my aunt and Uncle Jesse Roberts. It was called the Eat Well Cafe. Well, actually, they called it the Honky Tonk. That was a nickname for the Honky Tonk. It was just a little country cafe. They had a jukebox in there. This was in the early 50s. Young and old, they would go there and play the 1950s hit records and dance and sneak and drink beer and homebrew and whiskey, whatever. And some of the poets were there for young people quoting. See, my mother used to dip snuff, and that's a snuff bottle, and if you see a little thing protruding out from it, that's a toothpick. They used to call it toothbrushes. But you definitely have to look for the snuff. When I'm painting, really, it seems like I'm reliving those times and reliving in those places. It's really a pleasure.
Well, gotta run, but join us next week in Rouville, home of the American Costume Museum. We'll go camping with some Boy Scouts and tickle the ivories on the largest organ in the South. Thanks for watching. I'm Jack Stevens.